8:17 a.m., Western Pacific International Airspace. The sky was deceptively calm. High above the Pacific, the world appeared serene. An endless blue expanse broken only by thin, high-altitude cloud and the faint curvature of the horizon. There was no visible tension, no outward sign that the air itself was about to become contested terrain. A lone U.S. Air Force F-35 Lightning II cruised at altitude, its stealth-contoured airframe dissolving into radar clutter and atmospheric noise. To most sensors, it was little more than a suggestion, a whisper embedded in background interference. Its presence was intentional, but understated. The mission was routine by design. Presence, awareness, deterrence, nothing provocative, nothing aggressive. At least not on paper. Inside the cockpit, the pilot maintained steady speed and altitude. Every system read nominal. This was the quiet rhythm of modern air power. Be present without being visible. Be ready without posturing. 8:19 a.m. First anomaly. The calm fractured subtly. The pilot's helmet-mounted display flickered. Not violently, not alarmingly, just enough to be noticed. A new trace appeared at the edge of the sensor picture. Not an alarm, not a warning, just something that didn't belong. A faint sensor return, barely above background noise. The F-35's fusion engine reacted instantly, pulling fragments from radar, infrared, and passive electronic sensors, correlating data streams into a single picture. The result was unsettling, possible low observable contacts. The pilot frowned. Stealth aircraft weren't supposed to appear suddenly, not like this. 8:21 a.m. Confirmation. The contacts sharpened. Fast, high, closing from the northwest. The fusion engine raised confidence levels, vectors stabilized, threat symbology solidified. 2 aircraft. The pilot didn't need the system to identify them. Chinese J-20 stealth fighters. 8:22 a.m. Silent intercept begins. No radio calls pierced the air. No warnings were issued. The J-20s approached in silence, formation tight, geometry deliberate. This wasn't a casual shadowing maneuver. This wasn't identification. This was positioning. At 8:23 a.m., command was alerted. Thousands of miles away, over at U.S. Pacific Air Command, analysts leaned forward as the live feeds updated. Dual J-20 contacts were converging on a single F-35. The assessment moved rapidly up the chain. The response came back. Controlled and precise. Maintain mission. Observe. Do not provoke. At 8:24 a.m., there was visual contact. The first J-20 slid into view off the F-35's left side, its angular silhouette sharp against the morning sun. Its proximity, well, it erased any ambiguity. Just moments later, the second fighter appeared high and rearward, settling into a classic pincer. The F-35 pilot adjusted his course by degrees, not maneuvers, just enough to maintain separation without signaling intent. 8:25 a.m. Electronic pressure. Then the tone changed. Not an alarm, something quieter, more insidious. The F-35 detected emissions. Low power, narrow beam, focused. Chinese fire control radar. Not searching, tracking. 8:26 a.m. Weapons lock detected. The helmet display flashed amber. Radar illumination confirmed. The pilot's breathing slowed, deliberate and controlled. A weapons lock wasn't accidental. It wasn't curiosity. It crossed a line. 8:27 a.m. Escalation recognized. Across multiple command centers, the situation reclassified. weapons locked by a foreign fighter aircraft. No shots fired, no missiles launched. Yet. This was escalation. 8:28 a.m. The net tightens. The lead J-20 edged closer, cutting across the F-35's nose with minimal separation. Wake turbulence rippled through the American jet, rocking it just enough to be felt. The second J-20 descended slightly, slipping into a firing envelope. The geometry was intentional, unforgiving. At 8:29 a.m., Allied sensors react. Japanese and Allied radar systems picked up the engagement. Data streamed across secure networks. What began as a single patrol was now under observation by multiple national authorities. The incident was no longer isolated. At 8:30 a.m., discipline holds. The F-35 did not break away. Breaking away would invite pursuit and alter perception. Instead, the pilot held speed, held altitude, held discipline. At 8:31 a.m., a second lock. Another tone sounded, sharper, more insistent. The second J-20 had locked on, 2 fire control radars, 1 aircraft. 8:32 a.m., scramble ordered. At a nearby Allied airbase, pilots sprinted, engines ignited, runways cleared. This was no longer passive observation. 8:33 a.m. Chinese command decision. Inside a PLA Air Force Command Center, officers watched intently. Tactical dominance had been achieved. But, dominance carried risk. The order was measured. Maintain pressure. Do not fire. For now. 8:34 a.m. Compressed sky. 4 aircraft now occupied a shrinking pocket of airspace. 2 Chinese stealth fighters. 1 American stealth fighter. Allied jets racing toward the scene. No margin, no mistakes. 8:35 a.m. Cliffhanger. The F-35 sensors registered something new. Missile bay doors opening. Not fully, just enough. A message. The pilot whispered, "This just escalated." The tactical display updated again. 2 new symbols appeared at the edge of battle space. Fast, climbing, unmistakably friendly. U.S. and Allied fighters, minutes away, but their presence changed the geometry instantly. The Chinese pilots saw it too. Stealth did not mean invisibility, not here. The situation, was tense. But with new forces arriving, both sides hesitated. No one wanted to be the first to cross that line. Communications were terse, almost clipped. The threat was real, but so was the desire to avoid a full-scale conflict. For a few moments, the sky seemed to hold its breath. 8:37 a.m. Recalibration. The lead J-20 widened its turn slightly, creating space. The second climbed higher, shifting from firing posture into observation, not disengaging, recalculating. This was no longer a 2-on-1 encounter. 8:38 a.m. Strategic weight builds. Inside U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, the tension thickened. Weapons locks were confirmed and, missile bay movement was observed. Multiple nations were monitoring the same airspace. A senior officer spoke quietly, saying, "If a shot is fired here, it won't stay local." That understanding existed on both sides. 8:39 a.m. Radio contact. For the first time, the silence broke. U.S. aircraft, you are approaching sensitive airspace. Alter course immediately. The response came without hesitation. Negative. Operating in international airspace. Final. 8:40 a.m. Electronic warfare probe. A brief electronic pulse rippled across the spectrum. Not an attack, a test. Chinese electronic warfare systems probed response times and signal resilience. The F-35 adapted instantly, shifting frequencies and shielding channels. The sky had become, an invisible battlefield. 8:41 a.m. Allies arrive. Two Allied fighters emerged from the haze. They didn't charge. Instead, they slid into position, one high, one low. A protective screen. The message was unmistakable. The F-35 was no longer isolated. 8:42 a.m. Locks fade. Inside the cockpit, warning tones softened, then stopped. Fire control radar disengaged. Missile bays closed. Not retreat. Restraint. 8:43 a.m. Reassessment. In a PLA operations room, officers exchanged brief glances. Objectives met. Presence asserted. Response measured. Escalation tested. Further pressure now carried unacceptable risk. Disengage gradually. At 8:44 in the morning, withdrawal. The lead J-20 banked west. The second followed, holding visual contact just long enough for the message to land. Then the distance grew. Signatures faded. The sky began to open again. At 8:46 a.m., holding the line, U.S. and Allied aircraft remained steady. No pursuit, no celebration, only professional restraint. This wasn't about winning the sky. It was about not losing control of it. At 8:50 a.m., conclusion. Radar confirmed it. Chinese aircraft exited the area. Allied fighters remained on station until the patrol ended. No shots fired, no missiles launched. Yet nothing about the encounter was routine. Aftermath. Hours later, analysts replayed sensor data frame by frame. Commanders weighed every word. Diplomats chose language carefully. But every pilot involved understood the truth. For 23 minutes over the Pacific, the world edged toward conflict, without a single shot being fired.